The Sailor Moon collectible card game's unofficial 2023 revival is currently casting voice actors for a series of tutorial videos that will be released alongside the unofficial card expansions later this year. There are still several roles available, and if you're wondering what these videos will be like, picture the Pokemon trading card game Game Boy Color universe combined with Sailor Moon. So our protagonist, Pinako, will lead a new generation of fans through everything they're going to need to know about the Sailor Moon collectible card game, including basic tutorials on how the game is officially played in the way that it is, through the year 2000 where it was ended, all the way through the addition of new rules and some changes that are being made along with the unofficial 2023 revival. The characters and original animations for these videos were created by artist and Sailor Moon fan Daniel Price. Audition today on Casting Call Club. The project name is Project Gaiden Card. Gaiden. Card as in card game. There's a link in today's episode description.
Alright, Chad, do it just like that!
What? No way! I'm a singer, man, not a monkey!
Use your fear!
Major bummer. Hey, Wise Master, am I a black belt yet?
Welcome back to MOONSTAR, a Sailor Moon podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Alex, and this week Chris and I will be covering Grandpa Follies. Another one of the episodes with Follies in the title. I don't know why it comes up a lot, but it does, so here's another one for you. This is a great episode this week for the most part, but you have to just stay tuned and see why the final rating doesn't end quite as high as you might think for an episode that has so many great moments in it and introduces one of my personal favorite characters to us in the Deke version, Chad. So if you want to find out why it lands maybe not as high as most of us would think, stay tuned and you'll have to find out. Just a reminder, please, if you're interested in submitting auditions for any of the projects mentioned on this show, head on over to castingcall.club and just search the project titles or check the links in today's episode description. Wherever you listen, it should be available to you. Go ahead and submit your auditions via Casting Call Club. There are still a few roles left, though we are getting down to it, and production is going to start rolling ahead very shortly, probably this summer, on these larger long-term projects. So the window of opportunity is growing smaller and smaller, we'll say that. If you're interested, go ahead and do that. All right, let's get into the show. First, why don't you tell me about interviewing the voice of Queen Beryl?
Yeah, so, I think it would have been 2 weeks ago now. I interviewed Cindy Robinson, who, she is probably best known overall as the voice of Amy in all of the Sonic the Hedgehog properties. And she's also 5 characters in Fire Emblem. But then
5?
Yeah.
Wow.
And she's been doing predominantly anime voice work since the early 2000s. But she also, I don't know if she does as much anymore, but she also does a bunch of ADR work for major film and television, which, just a short thing for people if you don't know what ADR is, that's when anytime a celebrity can't come back, like a major celebrity can't come back to voice pickup lines or fill anything in for something that they're starring in, and they hire a voice actor sound alike to do it. Or not just that too, but almost any time that you hear like an actor or anybody off screen screaming or talking over an intercom, that's also what ADR is too. So she did that for like, I don't know, 15 years. But she is also Queen Beryl, Berthier, and then I think might not be every single season, but she's also various Monsters of the Day in the Viz redub of Sailor Moon.
When you were interviewing her, do you remember like just one highlight that stood out regarding Sailor Moon first, and then something unrelated?
Regarding Sailor Moon is, we didn't talk about it a ton. I guess the most interesting thing is that she just didn't, because she's older and she doesn't really watch anime outside of whenever she works on it. She just didn't realize she knew that it was like a original classic title, but she didn't realize the impact, I guess, that Beryl specifically has on this, or had, whatever, on the series.
When did it hit her? Do you remember? Did she say?
I mean, pretty early on, maybe like after the first few episodes.
Gotcha. It is such a really big character to play, and the original voice actress, what's her name? I would have to look. But she also did such an incredible job of being just so big, over-the-top evil. Like, if I ever think of evil queen, just random evil queen, Beryl is usually the first one I would go to as a great example anyway, for me, because I'm just not like a Disney kid, so I wouldn't think of any of them. But what was something unrelated to Sailor Moon that was kind of interesting?
Oh, I guess one big story from our interview too is one other large property that she plays two characters in is the Persona games, and one of them, Labris, is a robot android character, and she said that when she first started playing that role, like in the late 2000s or early 2010s, she got a letter from a fan that either they're autistic or they have Asperger's, and they just emailed her or wrote to her and just said that when I heard and saw you.
Oh, I really love that. That's sort of something that can be universal. I think that everyone can relate to, because representation of all kind is important. It just depends on who you are, right? Like whoever you are is going to depend on what representation is important to you. And I don't want to talk too much about my own, personal brand of neurodivergence, but I remember one of the things that I did say in therapy one time when I was getting sort of overwhelmed by, I guess, coming to terms with certain limitations that, may present to me sometimes, right? And I just remembered, telling my therapist, well, I don't really know what to do with my life because I don't think I can be a theoretical physicist like Sheldon from from The Big Bang Theory, and that's when it sort of hit me that I was like, that character is my only, or at the time was my only frame of reference for a person who was somewhat like me in that way, that was successful and had money to pay their bills. And then I realized how sad that was. And I was like, I'm sure part of it is just I haven't been exposed to some things, right? And then part of it is just that there's probably not very much of that either. And I love that that's something that she brought up in her interview, because I think something we both can relate to. What's some representation we've seen increase a lot in the last 10 years?
Well, I mean, especially in anime and Japanese media, I guess it's been within the last 3 or 4 years primarily, but there's been way more yaoi and yuri series that have been dubbed and have reached a big mainstream popularity in America more than they'd ever have. So that's been really nice. Even if I wasn't gay, too, I think I'd appreciate that.
Yeah, and I think so we've seen a lot of like more. That's a good reference for the show because we're an anime related show, but just a lot more LGBT representation across the board, and a lot more people of color. Like, yeah. I don't know how to describe that really because I'm not. So, but there's more representation for them in a more diverse way than we had in the past. I would guess that would just be what I feel I have seen. And so I think one of the next things we're going to see rolling through is that, like, the different types of neurodiversity and helping people understand what it actually means. Because I think the old way of thinking was sort of like, oh, that person is either crazy or they're not, right?
Yeah.
And once someone is branded crazy, the people who are, quote, not, sort of are trained to think, like, anything they do wrong. Like, anything that the, quote, crazy person does that's annoying is therefore wrong, because they're not the crazy one, right? And anyway. So, yeah, I think that's what's coming next.
Yeah.
I wanted to also... Hold on. Who was the... You said Lapras, right?
Yeah, in Persona, she plays Lapras, which is the female character in Persona 4. And then she's played way more of Ken, who is a little boy, or a teenage boy character.
So she does all kinds of voices. She's really diverse. Wow. Well, people can check that out on your YouTube in the video format already. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the interviews that we're going to be presenting a little bit later when it lands in the season at the correct time. And, we'll do the clips and everything with that. So that's something people can look forward to. I sent you something to look at. Do you remember what it was?
Yeah, it was that, I don't remember the name of it now, but it's a upcoming indie game that's based off of, like, it's like a mix between Animal Crossing and, like, well, it's like Animal Crossing, but it has 90s anime art style, like, female characters in it as the main characters.
Yeah, and it's like, you say Animal Crossing, but your reference point is probably going to differ depending on your age and, like, what games you're into. For me, it's a Sailor Moon and a Harvest Moon, like, convergence. That's what I get the most from it. I think other people will reference Stardew Valley, probably. Like you were saying, some people will reference Animal Crossing. It's a, like, what do you want to... I don't like this word, because it's, once I hear a word a lot, it makes my head crazy, but, like, it's a cozy game for like, Sailor Moon aesthetics, right?
Yeah.
I think that this idea is fantastic. I was looking at some of the art for it, and it looks like it's made in RPG Maker, which I absolutely love, because I enjoy using that too. And it's hard to tell whether or not they're really just going to have straight-up characters from Sailor Moon in it, or if it's just going to be in that art style.
I don't think they're going to have anybody from the series in it.
I think at the best it would be like an Easter egg or kind of a nod, like in somebody's design. Probably just for legal reasons more than anything. But it looks cute, and that I wanted to ask you: are you into games like that, or were you ever?
I remember when. Well, I shouldn't say I remember because I wasn't quite old enough, like when it first came out. But I'm familiar with Harvest Moon. Like that was a pretty early PS2 game, and I never owned it, but I just. I've seen it a ton and saw it a ton at used game stores and whatever growing up.
It was like one of the covers that stood out to you. You just never got it, kind of.
Yeah.
I know what you mean. I love games like that. I think they're really relaxing and fun. And I wish there was one that was just actually straight up Sailor Moon. Sort of. I don't know. We'll see. We'll have to see how it plays out. Because it's one of those things that's almost like... The more I look at it, it's like it's referencing Sailor Moon almost for the attention that it'll bring it, but I don't know if that'll speak to the quality. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So we'll have to actually see. I hope good things for it, though. And if people want to check it out, it's called Fields of Mysteria. And that's Mystria. Mystria. And they do have an official website. So you can go look at it. There's screenshots. It shows some of the features that are going to be in it for anyone who cares. You can customize your character and your farm to suit your style. Farm, fish, Minecraft, all the Harvest Moon stuff. find your ideal match. So like getting married, things like that. Animals are in it. There's magic to it, which is kind of great. I'm interested to see how that turns out. They're going to have the seasons, quests, festivals, and it says 30 plus villagers to follow their stories. I don't know. I mean, it looks pretty promising. And some of the characters, like there's one here. Okay, so there's two. I'm going to say I see the Sailor Moon references. One looks like if you took Helios and then put sunglasses on his head and like a front swoop to his hair. And then the other one is like a tan Helios in a Prince outfit. So, I mean, I see that. Good for them. Did you look at their website at all?
Oh, the video game website? I just read the article that you sent.
Okay. Some of their concept art is really cool. I'll post some of this stuff probably on the Facebook so people can check it out if they're interested. All right. Are you ready to get into this week's episode?
Yeah.
Today on Sailor Moon, Ray's grandpa is acting very strange, and we don't know what's wrong. Then Zoisite and her evil minion turn up at Ray's temple looking for another rainbow crystal. Only the Sailor Scouts can stop them, or can they? Just stick around, and I'll show you.
What is our Japanese title?
Grandpa loses control, Ray in danger.
Our English one is Grandpa's Follies. There's that word again. Which, it came up twice now, so I think that when I was trying to make a fake name, the fact that I went for that word is fair. And the first thing we come in on, in the Deke one anyway, is this sort of very specific music sting that's only a couple seconds long. But for some reason it hit in a really nostalgic way, so I'm curious to see if it's used a lot. But I really love it. And what's the opening scene for this episode?
Interestingly, it just kind of starts out right away where Ray's grandpa is sitting on the roof of the shrine looking up at the moon, and Zoisite shows up already and tries to get the rainbow crystal out of him. But then, because Grandpa Hino is just like Ray and has the same spiritual premonition and energy that Ray has, he, at least right now, he's able to like fight back against it internally. And then both of Ray's crows notice Zoisite and go up and attack, and then Zoisite just goes away for the time being.
I love it when there's a full moon. Reminds me of when we used to go camping and roast marshmallows with my grandpa, huh? Who are you? What are you doing up there? Oh, I feel evil.
Queen Beryl will be so pleased when I retrieve the rainbow crystal from this old geezer. Once we've collected all the crystals, we can finally release the Negaforce. Like taking candy from a baby.
I must summon my will against this evil!
No, this can't be! What do you know? The geezer's not so old after all. Zoe! Huh? Ugh, crows! I hate crows!
Grandpa! He must have fallen off the roof.
Yeah, and who witnesses all of this happen?
Ray. Or, well,
also, and?
No, I guess, would it be Yuichiro yet? I don't think he sees that yet. Or does
He's there. He's sleeping on the stairs, so technically he's there for it. I swear he wakes up during it, but I could be remembering it wrong. So Yuichiro and or Chad, depending on what version you're following. This is the first episode we see him. And who is he? Why is he significant?
Well, he ends up working at the shrine.
Yeah, and he represents an important character in all of their lives in the sense that he's there in some important moments for the scouts, but also more importantly for Ray, right? Because he's the closest to her, and we'll see. So we have this moment with the full moon, like you said. Zoisite shows up and attacks right away, which, how did you feel about that? I kind of thought it was exciting having it start right like that.
Yeah, same. It made things more interesting.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but remind me, what was the last episode?
Oh, 29.
Yeah.
What was the last episode?
I'm blanking. That doesn't speak well for it.
It was.
It's only been.
It was the Makoto Nisagi crushing on. Yeah.
Okay, I lied. That's a great episode. I just blanked. Yeah. I think because that one was a lot more story heavy and not really action heavy, they maybe wanted to just like catch you right in the beginning and remind you like this is also exciting. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed it. I thought it was a great choice. And this is conjecture unless you actually know, but where do Ray and her grandfather's powers come from? Outside of the Sailor Scout stuff.
I don't know, actually, without looking it up.
That's something we could do, like, when we do a special on her specifically, because I'm sure we'll do one on everyone eventually. We could really dig into that detail and see what we can find, because I think that would be interesting. If anyone knows, comment, because I would love to know that. Also, I love that her grandpa has the same thing.
Right.
Because I think this is the first time we find out that, right?
Yeah.
And so getting to see him do what he does this episode is pretty exciting. How is Chad's voice in the Viz dub? Because I haven't heard it. Does he have any kind of accent at all?
It's very normal. It's funny too, because I don't think I mentioned this, but I've interviewed Ray's grandpa, Viz actor, Yuichiro's Viz actor, and then you already know that I had interviewed Steven Bednarski, who did Yuichiro, and he was the first voice of Yuichiro in the original.
You interviewed him too? That's right, we did talk about it. Okay, so I would like to hear the Viz one, because at least with him, I haven't heard his voice yet. And I don't think his voice has to be as wacky as it is in the 90s necessarily to work. But I prefer the 90s one. It's one of my favorite vocal choices besides Molly. How would you describe... Have you heard him in the 90s one at all?
Yeah, at least when Steven was playing Yuichiro, it's a very stereotypical, heavy, cartoony surfer, like surfer stoner California guy, yeah.
My name's Chad. I'm a struggling musician. I've heard all sorts of great things about this place. Please let me stay. I'll do anything you want. Please.
And I don't know what it is, but it was like I think it was the first time I ever heard that accent sustained in a character for more than like a split second for a joke or something, you know?
Yeah.
And the way he did it, it just adds so much charm to the character of Yuichiro or Chad. And I think it kind of helps take some of the... Because the way Ray treats him isn't always the best, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But him being so goofy and kind of unfazed by it makes it really kind of okay almost. Not really okay, but you know what I mean. Like it's not like it makes it less uncomfortable, I think. I don't want to make you give a preference, but I would say, can you appreciate all versions of him?
Yeah.
Okay. Because they each have their merit, right? I think. In their own way. So we see Chad here, and he meets Ray and Grandpa after this kind of thing happens, and they're talking. And then he has this moment with, kind of similar to Makoto last episode, where he sees Ray and she's beautiful, and he does the hard eyes and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Which, point of interest, he's the first male character we've seen do that.
Yeah.
Is he wait, Melvin does it at some point, right?
Multiple times, yeah.
Okay, so him and Melvin. Let's keep our eyes out and see if any other, quote, male characters do that. And what does he request after he sees Ray?
Doesn't he immediately ask to work there, pretty much?
Yeah, very 0 to 100. in a split second. But to be fair, it seems like he was homeless or something.
Yeah.
So probably not, gonna look that far. But either way, I appreciate him. And then we kind of get this jump back to Zoisite for a second. Does it go in that order in the Japanese too?
It's just showing the monster that's inside her grandpa, right?
Yeah, and it's really quick. Okay.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell if that was one of their weird splicing moments, because it sort of does feel out of place to me a little. But I don't know. I guess it's like a plot device. And then after we have that, we jump back to the temple, and what's happening?
Her grandpa and Yuichiro are swinging from the trees in the courtyard of the shrine from ropes, and then Yuichiro falls to the ground, and then Usagi, Makoto, and Ami show up, and then Rei tells them that ever since the other night that her grandpa's been acting really weird and doing stupid stuff like this.
Yeah, and this scene is, I'm sure it's ridiculous in every single version. But there's just a lot of great, I don't know if it's just choices that this character they made for Chad in the 90s or if it's a 90s thing, but he says things like, I'm a singer, not a monkey, but the way he delivers it, they'll hear it on the show, and I'm going to put it in. And then, am I a black belt yet? After he, is about to pass out. It's just really ridiculous. And
yeah,
the girls come up and see this going on, and Amy asks who Chad is. How does Rei describe him?
She says that, pretty much that she's just, someone he wants to work, at the shrine, and, become her grandfather's apprentice.
Yeah, she's kind of rude about him, and she goes, he's some toasted rock star recuperating from his last tour, or so he says. And then immediately after, she's being sweet about him. And I'm starting to sort of see sometimes when maybe the dialogue, they weren't quite sure the inflection to use, or you know what I'm saying? Where it's the way they described not being in the room together. I don't know. Every now and then something like that'll happen, and it'll stand out to me. Why are Rei and her grandfather fighting right now?
Because she tells him that if he keeps doing stuff like this all of a sudden, and publicly, then they're not going to get attention, and people are gonna lose respect and trust into their shrine.
So they took a different direction. I figured, yeah, that makes a lot more sense. This was more focused on him could have hurt Chad, and then Grandpa's just randomly crying and acting crazy, and she's just basically getting frustrated with him being out of control, and doesn't really reference any of that other stuff, and it is mostly concerned about him getting somebody hurt. Which I think that was probably made because of the laws, because they had to address the danger shown.
Yeah.
And it was a children thing. So we have this cute moment where he plays a trick on Chad after crying, and him and Serena are kind of laughing and enjoying themselves, and Rei's, of course, getting mad at Serena. And it was funny because, when this was going on, I had a moment of being oh my god, enough of the fighting. And then, 2 seconds later, Amy and Lita were oh my god, enough of the fighting, we hate you. They didn't say we hate you, but they left, and they were just bye.
Grandpa, you're going to see a doctor. Ever since you fell off the roof, you've been acting like a granola bar.
Don't listen to her, Grandpa. A pit bull with a toothache's got a better sense of humor. Cuter, too.
Who wants to go flying?
I figured it out. You got meatballs on the sides of your head to go with the spaghetti inside.
Did you see that really hurt?
Get a life, Ray. You can't go shoving people around like that.
Yeah, big bully. Lita's right, Ray. Apologize right now, and she'll stop that awful crying. Fine, be that way, brat. I'm sick of having to break up your pre-adolescent fights. Grow up, get a life.
Yeah, give us a call when you get out of diapers. Huh? Fine, get out of here. I'm not apologizing to anybody, especially that ditz Serena.
And I thought that was so funny, because that let me know that was probably an intentional thing.
Mm-hmm.
Where they want us to feel like, okay, it's really a lot. Were you feeling that at all?
I mean, yeah, I guess that's a good point, too.
It could have come off differently in other versions, though, because there was, like, the fighting and arguing with Grandpa and Ray, and then Ray and Chad, and then Ray and Serena, and it was kind of like one after the other. So it was just a lot of screaming, and I think my ears were like, oh my god, enough already. Favorite line from the show, though, is when Ray addresses her grandpa and says,
Ever since you fell off the roof, you've been acting like a granola bar.
Don't listen to her, Grandpa.
What?
That doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
I think I'm like slightly too young to remember when that was used, because I never called anyone a granola bar. I don't know what that means.
Yeah, I've never heard that.
The closest thing I can think of is like hippie, because I know sometimes people are like, oh, you're very granola if you're like hippie dippy or whatever, but he wasn't acting like a hippie. So it just seemed like such a random word, and the way she says it is so funny too, because there's a weird pause before granola bar, like she doesn't know what to say, and then that's what she settles on. But I absolutely love that moment. So everyone can enjoy that.
You've been acting like a granola bar.
After all the fighting kind of subsides, we get this moment of like calmness. What's happening here?
Yuichiro and Ray are by themselves, and Ray says, she just remarks out loud about she wishes that Grandpa would stop being weird, and then Yuichiro says that, you know, some people, especially when they're older, they can just act out and be strange when the seasons change from summer into autumn. So I'm sure that he'll peter out and be normal pretty soon.
Is that a thing?
I mean, I guess it probably has to do with like depression.
I mean, maybe, but there is that thing. I don't remember what it's called, but it's like where certain people, like after a certain time of night, just kind of like start acting really weird after a certain age. There's like a term for it. There's a movie based on it, and it's like sleepwalking, but not. Mm-hmm. And it's really scary. Like it's almost. I might have the word werewolf in it. I'm not sure, but anyway, if anyone knows what I'm talking about, look it up. If not, I'll like look it up and put it in next week so you can have that to pay attention to. But
the concept Alex is referring to here is called sundowner's syndrome. The term, sundowning, refers to a state of confusion occurring in the late afternoon and lasting into the night. Sundowning can cause different behaviors, such as confusion, anxiety, aggression or ignoring directions. Sundowning can also lead to pacing or wandering. Sundowning is not a disease.
Yeah, that might be a thing. I don't know. They're talking about that. One thing I noticed in this moment was the animation. And I thought, this moment looked good, but the rest of it, who is this? I actually can't tell.
Yeah, it's someone that we've talked about, that we've brought up in the same reasoning before. It's a guy named Akira Nakamura. He only did episodes in season 1, and then he never worked on the series again.
So kind of like the mixed bag deal, where...
Yeah, he's just okay, yeah.
Yeah, some of the moments were really cute, some of them were kind of whatever. Oh my gosh. See, and then we go back. Oh, wait, no. I forgot to touch on this earlier, actually. Let me bring this up. During one of Ray and Serena's fights, Ray actually pushes Serena down, and that's what makes Amy and Lita storm off. And they, try to force her to apologize for pushing her down. Does that happen in the Japanese version?
Yeah.
Okay, so it was, straight up in both versions. They're like, please don't push her down. That's too much. Okay, gotcha. Also, the way she pushed her down was weird. It was with one finger. We cut to later, and Serena has a plan. What is her plan?
Oh, it's time to play matchmaker. Yeah. Cool. I can totally see Ray going out with a hot rock star.
Serena, don't. The last thing you need is to do more meddling into Ray's life.
Come on, Luna. It'll be a kick. Don't be such an old stodgemeister.
Just how do you plan to play matchmaker anyway?
Ta-da!
No, Serena. You promised you wouldn't use the Luna pen for pranks anymore.
Disguise power! Turn me into a fortune teller matchmaker! She'll never recognize me!
Oh, wouldn't count on that.
Well, when during that same scene that we were just talking about, she's also outside. She's just sitting on a bench with Luna, just like a few feet away, and then she wants to, for whatever reason, she wants Rei and Yuichiro to go out with each other, and then she uses the disguise pen to transform herself into a fortune teller, and then goes up to them and does bullshit, and then gets called out right away.
I love that that's how you describe that. It is what she does, though. I was going to ask you if there was anything to that sticks thing she was doing.
It's like I think it's like a Japanese, like a thing that's specific to Japan and fortune telling, because I've never seen that before.
It probably is, and I imagine that the way she was doing it was wrong or something in a very obvious way. That's like kind of a joke that we probably wouldn't pick up on. I thought, what did you think of her look?
I don't know. It was stupid. Like, you could really obviously tell that it was her in comparison to pretty much every other time that she's used the transformation pen.
I wonder if that's because she really shouldn't use it for things like that, so maybe the power was weaker on it or something.
Probably.
I like to think about the way their magic functions. Oh, also, Terry's fortune-telling voice was really silly.
Oh, I sense strong vibrations. Let me tell you your fortune. You see, these sticks here, when I throw them into the air, they're going to tell me your future. Huh? And I have a strong hunch wedding bells will be ringing. Ready? Roll! You see how these sticks are crossed in my hands now means only one thing. Time for a little kissy face. Come on! What are you waiting for?
This ditz is out of control.
Huh?
Let's go, Chad.
No kissy face? Oh.
Because it was like, you know, they told her to do an accent, but she was like, well, I'm not going to just pick a random ethnicity, you know, because that could not come off properly. And so it was like this weird, unplaceable accent that just made no sense. And honestly, like, I know people have a really strong preference when it comes to these characters, like who voiced Sailor Moon and everything. And some people really prefer Terry, and I was one of those people for a long time. But when she does the wacky stuff like that, she sounds just like Linda Valentine.
Yeah.
And I think that's where Linda had to take her inspiration from, because that was probably like the notes of Terry's that she could actually hit, and then the rest just had to be her kind of natural thing. And so I think when people really pay attention, like, it is a little nitpicky, because it's sort of like, I don't know, it's not as different, I think, as people make it out to be, where just certain parts are. Anyway, I thought this part was fun until, of course, there was more fighting, which I think I just get fatigued from that as a plot device, personally. And I'm glad that it fades away, because it does in later seasons. It's, like, still there, but it's not as frequent.
Mm-hmm.
And then we cut to Luna and Serena having a heart-to-heart about her meddling and, like, why Rei's maybe upset. What is some of the things Luna says here?
Cheer up, Serena.
I can't. I totally embarrassed myself with Rei. She hates me.
She doesn't hate you. She thinks you're a major ditz, which under the circumstances I don't blame her. But you know, Rei, tomorrow it'll all blow over.
She won't even let me apologize.
Of course she will, eventually. And then I bet she'll be glad to have some help with her grandpa.
Before Usagi transformed and did that, Luna said that, you know, you're just gonna piss Rei off more, and then Usagi brushed it off, and then excuse me, because that the last thing that Rei says before walking away is that I'm not gonna talk to you ever again, and then Luna pretty much just says, like, Should have listened to what I was saying.
Yeah, it's. I think in this one, it was more of her explaining it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why Ray was upset by her behavior and stuff. And that was probably meant to kind of help kids who might have been like Serena, who found themselves in positions of, like, they're bothering their friends in certain ways maybe they don't understand. It was probably trying to spell that out for them a little bit, I think. But on a lighter note, Luna is eating something.
Wow, your mum's chocolate cakes are mighty yummy.
How can you even think of food right now?
I must be really upset.
Major chocolate hit. Yum. I know. Let's take these up to Ray's temple as a peace offering. This is inspired. If there's one thing Ray can't resist, it's anything chocolate. Oh, I may not even have to apologize.
Serena, your mum brought those in specially for us.
Aren't you always telling me discipline builds character?
Hey, wait, give me one more. I had to go and open my big mouth. I want those cupcakes all for me.
And they call them chocolate cakes. They look like chocolate cakes to me in the English dub, but they might have changed the inside. Do you know what that food is?
Are they colored?
Yeah.
Yeah, those would just be I don't know if you know what they are, but in Japan, one of the dessert items, it's like, I think it's just called, I think probably what she's eating in that episode is mochi. It's flour, rice flour dough, and then inside of it is sweet red bean paste.
Ah, I've heard of it. Okay, I understand. That makes sense. They might have, is it red inside in the...
Yeah.
Okay, I think they recolored it to brown, because in the Deke one it looks like chocolate cakes. They actually look pretty tasty. Point of interest, later on there's a moment of her holding these chocolates, like these cakes or the mochi or whatever it is, and pointing with the moon behind her. And that was used on some of the merch in the 90s, and I've seen it kind of as like an iconic image too. So I'm probably gonna... Honestly, that's probably gonna be the episode cover for this one. But it's one of my favorite images. It's on the holographic binder. If anyone has it, post pictures and tag us, because I would love to see what you use it for. Love that binder. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Okay. After this moment with Luna and Serena, what happens?
Yuichiro it's at night, and then Yuichiro is just thinking about Ray, and then Ray's in the bath thinking about her grandpa in the situation. And then her grandpa is inside the main room in the shrine, meditating over fire, and then Zoocyte shows up again and then blasts her grandpa outside. For the bathroom scene, we only really see her face and her in the bathroom or in the bath for, I don't know, is really short in the English one. Is it longer in the Japanese, do you think? It's like a couple of seconds. It's a little bit longer, probably, yeah.
I was gonna say, I'm sure they just, like, chopped around that, and that's one of those moments. Things like that, to me, as long as I still get the story, it's kind of whatever. Unless it was, like, a really well-animated episode, then I might kind of care, because I'd want to see how, Ito does that, but otherwise, whatever. I really liked Grandpa using the fire.
Sacred flame, I seek your guidance. Help me to fight the evil that threatens me. Come on, try and take me, you creepy witch!
Grandpa, you're way too weak to hold me off this time.
We'll see about that.
Like you were talking about, to reveal Zoocyte, and we mentioned it earlier too. I love getting to see him do that. I thought the English voice actor who played him in the Deke did a great job of, like, serious, goofy in this episode, because there was a lot of back and forth between that for Grandpa's character. And eventually, as all of them do, Grandpa has to transform into, because he's the Rainbow Crystal Warrior, or one of the Seven Shadows. The name of this monster is, do you know?
Yeah, in Japanese it's Gigi, which is, ironically, that's the Japanese word for Grandpa.
They called him Pox in the English one, which I think pox, other than, like chicken pox and stuff, is just generally like an ailment of some kind. I'm not really sure exactly what it means. Okay. There's a choice. Any of several viral diseases producing a rash of... I'm gonna cut that out. They don't need to hear that. Pox is nasty, you guys. That's what you need to hear, and you can Google it yourself if you want to hear that gross part. So enjoy that. But yeah, I don't think that name fits this monster at all. I think Gigi's a really cute name for it. Because how would you describe it?
It looks just like, exactly like Japanese, very old. If anyone's ever seen, hundreds of years old Japanese art, it's based off of how monsters or demons looked in Japanese folklore back then, or one of the ways that they looked anyway.
The second you said that, I saw exactly what you mean. For anyone who might not know, to try and give you a visual reference, it's kind of like the body of a gorilla, would you say? The face is sort of like a cross between like human and lion.
Yeah.
With googly eyes that don't look in the same direction, and then he had horns, correct?
Right. Yeah.
He's a really wild looking character. The way he acted in the show was sort of like all over the place, right?
Mm-hmm.
We get into this battle scene. What happens with the indigo crystal? What's going on?
Initially, Tuxedo Mask tries to get it, or he knocks it away, but then Zoocyte orders the monster to attack him, and then while that's happening, Zoocyte grabs it and then goes into the woods and then disappears right after mocking Tuxedo Mask.
Okay, so that's another one for the Negaverse. What's our tally here? Do you know?
I think, doesn't Tuxedo Mask just still have one? And I think Beryl still has more than anybody else does.
Probably. This will be fun for everybody because they can try to do it with us. Let's go back and think about the Rainbow Crystal episodes. The first Rainbow Crystal was in Game Machine Joe. Who got that one?
I think that was Zoocyte.
So one for Zoocyte. Who got the one from Bobo the Vulture, the punching guy?
Yep.
Who got that one?
I think that's
Tuxedo, right?
Tuxedo Mask.
Yeah. So one for Tuxedo, one for Zoocyte. Red, orange, yellow. Who was our yellow crystal?
Was that Rio?
Might have been. Which one? Where did his go?
I know that Usagi just has one, so maybe that's the one.
I think so. We'll go with that one. What about Vina?
Zoocyte still got that one. Yeah.
Is that 2 or 3 for Zoocyte?
Well, 3 now.
3,
but,
including today, right?
Yeah.
Who? And then last week would have been the Rita, the science one. Who got that one?
Oh, I thought that was the last one you mentioned. Yeah. So, I think Zoocyte still has maybe 3 or maybe it is 4.
This is so hard to remember. I'm gonna figure it out, and I'll insert the tally here. So, just so everybody knows, the official Rainbow Crystal tally is...
By the end of this episode, Zoocyte will have 4 rainbow crystals, Tuxedo Mask will have 1, and the Scouts will have 1. 6 have been revealed.
Okay. Cool. What was sort of something that's kind of unique about this battle?
I guess it's there's a lot, like Usagi's not really around for it. It's more centered on the monster version of her grandpa just fucking up stuff.
Queen Pharaoh will be thrilled. Got you again, Cave Boy.
You're not getting away with that crystal!
Really?
Don't you ever stay to fight your own battles, Zoocyte!
Why should I?
I want my mommy! How'd she disappear so fast?
I win again, Tuxedo Mask, but watch your back. When I return, I'll come for you.
That was one thing. What else? Let's see. So, some things I noticed, we got to see, like, the start of a moon tiara, but it doesn't happen because she shows up and she doesn't realize who the monster is right away. And the monster is weakened by Ray, not Sailor Mars. Mm-hmm. So, Ray is part of the battle, but never actually transforms. Yeah, probably to protect her identity, I guess. So that was something that I thought was kind of interesting, the way the battle went down. It was less formulaic than I think I remember them being. Like, I think I don't know, how do you feel? Aren't the battles a lot less straightforward than you remember sometimes?
Yeah, I suppose.
Because I think it's easy to just remember the, like, stock footage and not all the little nuances they do with everything else. Mm-hmm. What does that mean? MHA, Grandpa saved. Moon healing activation. Oh, okay. So he gets saved. What we see Lita and Ray again for, like, they're only in this episode for 2 seconds twice. What are they doing here?
Oh, Lita and Ami.
Yeah, Lita and Ami.
They just show up before, or they just. Oh no, that's after the battle and stuff. Yeah, they come back. To see if things are okay again, and when they walk up to the stairs, they see that things are fine. Yeah,
they kind of stop at the bottom of the stairs and they hear fighting in the English one, and they're like, it sounds like everything's back to normal. So much fighting. Cut to, we actually see Grandpa, Serena, Ray, and Chad together, and Serena and Chad, in the English one, Chad is like, do you remember what happened? And then he's like, what? And Serena's like, oh, you turned into a monster. Just tells him. And then Ray's like, we're not supposed to tell him that. And then it's just like, never mentioned again that they revealed that happened.
Boy, fighting monsters sure makes me hungry.
Me too.
I wonder if your grandpa will show me how to do that transformation thing.
How to do what, Chad?
You know, turn into that big old red lobster thingy.
You promised not to tell him about it, remember?
What happens with Chad and Ray here?
She kisses his cheek, just saying that he was really courageous last night. And then Usagi obviously teases her after that, and then the episode ends with everybody, like, chasing each other around, and then it closes on, like, an end screen of all of them together.
So, Chad, do you think you're about ready to go back to the real world now?
No, he should stay.
Well, I'd like to hang with Grandpa and get back to my music.
Oh!
Okay, not singing. Got the point.
That's a mistake. I had a vision, and it showed me why you came here. It was to get over your stage fright, and you did it.
Oh, I feel a song rising in my heart. I've got to sing. I'm cured. I can go on stage again.
And maybe you could go on tour with him as a backup singer.
Stop trying to fix me up with Chad already, would ya? The only guy I'm interested in is Darian. Nothing's gonna change that.
Chad's a rock star.
You're gonna see stars.
Stop it, Ray. I've told you 1,000 times you can't date until you're at least 16.
Huh? Why do I put up with you?
Want to hear my song?
Maybe another time.
Listen. Sounds to me like Serena and Ray managed to patch things up between them.
I never thought I'd love to hear them argue.
Please be quiet. I'm trying to get some milk.
Yeah, it's really cute. Something, I don't know if they mentioned it in the other one, but they bring up the fact that Ray and Darian are also together. Because she kisses him, and then it's like, she's teasing her, and she's like, Darian's the only one for me. And I'm like, I forgot they were even dating. That's how, like, unimpactful, I guess, their relationship is on the show. All right, a lot happened in this episode in a very short amount of time, I feel like. It's another one of those. Did you feel like that at all?
I mean, it was, I guess so, but it was fine. Like, it moved along well.
I think I need to start watching them twice. Because I think scrambling to take notes during it might be making them feel that way. So out of curiosity, next week I'm going to try doing that. Like, just do it a cold, just watch it to enjoy it, and then do the notes. Yeah. Because it'll give me a better reference point anyway. What would you rate this week's episode?
3, I guess. 3.5.
I think it comes in at a solid 3 for me. Why do you think 3.5?
Because even though I probably would have just said a solid 3, considering the art style, but even with that, there's still a lot of good action moments, and I like how most of the fight was, again, not a typical fight, and it centered more on the monster wreaking havoc without being interrupted at all, and Ray almost being killed by it. That was more interesting.
Okay, I think that's fair. I say solid 3. It loses the half star for me because I kind of agree with you on that, and then I also think Chad is really charming in this episode, and I love his character. But the amount of screaming in it in the English Deke version was kind of a lot for me, to the point where it kind of was like...
Yeah.
It was like making it hard to enjoy it at times, because I was like, okay, I get it. Like, I get that they're fighting.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? And I think it's nothing against the voice actors, because that's what they were instructed to do, too. You know? But I think that's where it loses the 0.5 for me. Otherwise, like, conceptually, I really do like this episode. My favorite point, I think, is the way they ordered it. Where it was like, action in the beginning, a little bit of plot, action, a little bit of plot. Yeah. Like, it was kind of up and down, but I'm also glad they don't do that every week. Because then it would get tiring.
Yeah.
All right, let's do the Sailor Says.
Ray's grandpa sure wasn't acting himself today, but he has good reason. Lots of kids are impatient with older people. Some have hearing problems or can't move as fast as we'd like them to. But they also have years of experiences we haven't had. With all that living comes lots of wisdom and lots of stories about times long before we were born. Don't miss out on what older people have to give us. Sailor Moon says, bye now!
This one was kind of funny because if you... Okay, let me read my notes, and then I'll deliver it a different way, and you'll see why. The Sailor Says is about being patient with older people. Sometimes they have limitations that young people can't understand, but they also have a lot of wisdom. So it's like worth getting to know them, listening to them, all that kind of stuff. You can also read this one or interpret it as, sometimes older people are difficult and crazy. But sometimes it's your job to take care of them when you're young, and you might not get it, but do it anyway. Like, it was so... Like, I don't know. It came off a little bit weird. Of, like... It was basically telling kids, we know you're, like, the old people in your life are super annoying. But you should like them anyway. So, what can we do with the discussion on this? Let's just make the discussion... I don't know what the correct term is. Like, because they said older people / old people, but, like, is it elderly people? What do they like? You know what I mean? I don't know what they want to be called. Let's make it senior citizens. How about that?
Yeah.
This is hard to speak on because we're both fairly young in terms of the world. But let's do this. Let's think of, like, one thing that you would say, and let's classify senior citizens as, like, genuinely someone who would literally get, like, the senior citizens discount at a restaurant, just to keep it simple. So it's like we're not making any judgments. The restaurant judged you, it's not me. But what is something that you could say, like, from a person in that age group outside of your family, a really valuable thing you've learned from someone older?
Just, I guess I can probably tie it in from an interview standpoint. Just because a lot of the music industry people, especially that I've done, are all like, I think they're all in their 60s. Some of them are in their 70s. Just, you know, if you keep yourself clean and you don't do anything dangerous and you just make good decisions all throughout your life, then you'll feel better by that age, and you'll be able to have, like, a lot of memories to cherish and tell stories about, and, like, walk back on in your own mind. So I guess that's something I would say.
That's kind of a hard concept to digest. Like, it's really interesting, though. How can we simplify that a little for people listening? What do you think? Can we give it, like, a fable message? Do you know what I mean? Let's try to.
I guess a simple way of saying it would just be.
It sounds like what they're saying. Well, the first thing I think of is like a thing people used to say is "keep your nose clean, kid."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like when they would meet a kid that they thought had a lot of promise, they might tell them that. That's sort of an old timey expression. Do you know what that means?
I mean, I know you could say that it's in reference to Coke, but not just that.
Hello?
Specifically.
Oh, say it again. Sorry, I lost you for a second.
Oh, I mean, I know that you could, say that it's in reference to not doing cocaine, but I know it's not specifically about that.
No, it's not. It's kind of what you were referencing, where it's like, there's different levels of understanding it. I think the basic level of understanding is like, if you're not doing things that you know already are wrong, going to sleep at night's going to be easier, and it leaves a lot of room in your life to do things you know are right and create good positive memories, right, to look back on. But there's further wisdom in not doing things like that, because like another level of understanding is that the world is full of people who are have all kinds of motivations, right? And some people are just looking for that thing to get on you so they can try to use it to control you, right?
Yeah.
But if you don't have that thing, they can't get it. Do you know what I mean? So like people can come at you and try, but if you know in your heart, like what they were saying, that you're a good person, you live your life to the best of your ability, and you leave room for yourself to grow, people can't get their claws in you, and you can live a free life. And then, like they were saying, when you get older, wouldn't you rather look back on that than a life of like, I don't know, always looking over your shoulder because of that last messed up thing you did? Like that doesn't sound fun.
Yeah.
It sounds exhausting, actually. I don't know. Do you have anything to add on that subject?
No.
It's kind of a tough one. I liked the Sailor Says, because especially if we bring it into the terms of the 90s, I think generational gappage was as wide as it ever has been. Maybe more so, though, because at least now we do have the ability to communicate more easily with each other, So I'm sure there's a little more bridging the gap going on than there was before. But it was like, yeah, I'm sure kids had no clue why older people did most of the things they did. And why not give them a little perspective, right? Not that I don't know who paid attention to these. I feel like I might have been like the only kid who took them that seriously at that age. I don't know. But yeah, that's it for this episode. What was the Japanese title again?
Oh, it's Grandpa Loses Control, Ray in Danger.
Grandpa Loses Control, Ray in Danger versus Grandpa's Follies. I mean, it's another one of like, this is what happens, and then kind of a not so great Deke title.
Yeah.
Both of the titles are kind of whatever. Alright, well, I guess that's it for this week. Do you have anything coming up you want to let people know about?
Just stuff that just happened. Just a few days ago, my last interview was with Julia, a woman named Julia Gu, who is the next new character in Genshin Impact. Kirara, the update, comes out in 3 days, I think. So
it'll be out by the time they get this. It'll be about a week since.
Okay, yeah. And I don't have anything set in stone yet, but after doing her, I'm only 3 interviews away from 300 people.
I saw that post on YouTube.
Yeah.
With that, you holding up the 3 fingers. I love that.
Yeah.
3 interviews away from 300. Congratulations.
Nice.
And for people, we've said it before, but for people who might have forgotten, remind them when you started.
Yeah, so my first interview technically was, I think, in June or July of 2020. So I'm sure that it'll at least be exactly on the nose of 3 years, but I don't know. Depending on how things go, I'll probably end up hitting 300 before I officially started, so who knows.
Wouldn't it be interesting if it landed on June 30th?
Yeah.
Serena's birthday. We'll see what happens. I'm curious because I find like the way numbers come up kind of fascinating sometimes.
Yeah.
So we'll have to see. Let's keep tabs on it, and I'm excited for that. That's a really good milestone in a very short amount of time. And everyone, I hope you're going and checking out, because I'm sure you guys have other interests outside of Sailor Moon. You do a lot of diverse interviews, so head on over to Chris's YouTube channel and just kind of, put some in a playlist and watch them when you want to watch something like that. I don't know. I mean, you don't have to live your life, but I'm just saying. All right. Is there anything else you want to add about today's episode or anything?
Well, isn't you can cut this, I'm sure, but
yeah.
Isn't I'm sure you will, but
all right. Well, I'll let you go. Thank you. I'll see you next week.
Yep. Bye.
Bye. That's it for this week's episode of MOONSTAR, a Sailor Moon podcast. Did you guys like this episode, Grandpa Follies, more, less than Chris and I? We both came in around a solid 3.5, and I think a large part of it was this episode, while it has some great moments, also has a lot of repetition in it. When I was going through and taking the screenshots to create some of the art for this week, and also I'm going to share those with you guys as part of a visual journey for the podcast, I noticed that even aside from the fighting that I mentioned being repeated a lot in the episode, the visual motifs were repeated frequently too, specifically so much running back and forth. I think it was a nod to Scooby-Doo, which happens a few times in Sailor Moon, but by the end of it, it was really it was a lot of that. You'll see in the screenshot album, when I share that with you guys, it's just, count the images. I'm sure there's more than 10. And it's just them running back and forth and back and forth. And the reason I took so many is I wanted to show how much they reused that during this episode. But yeah, there were still a lot of positive aspects to it. I love Chad. I love the voice choices that were made in the English version. You guys got to hear a lot of that today. And I think we got a lot more of Rei's character development and her relationship with Serena or Usagi. And that stuff is important, so I do appreciate the episode for that. But yeah, it's a little more on the wacky side, even when there were potential moments that could have been taken seriously and elevated it, in my opinion. Every time that came up, they went for the funny option instead, and you'll even see that highlighted in the screenshots as well. So go check those out. They're going to be shared on the MOONSTAR Facebook page for now. Eventually, everything will be on the website, moonstarpod.com. If you want more of Chris, you can find him on the socials at Chris Mayek, ChrisMayek. Also, be sure to check out his YouTube channel for celebrity interviews of all kinds, specifically many voice actors who do anime and video games. And if you want more of me, Alex, you can find me on Instagram at AlexSummersSFE. But more importantly, follow the MOONSTAR socials. So that would be MOONSTAR, a Sailor Moon podcast on Facebook predominantly, the Sailor Moon video, YouTube, and of course, check out our website, moonstarpod.com. MOONSTAR, a Sailor Moon podcast, is sponsored in part by Sailor Moon Video. Head on over to www.sailormoonvideo.com and use offer code MOONSTAR until the end of 2023 for 15% off all purchases. MOONSTAR, a Sailor Moon podcast, is created for informational, educational, and entertainment purposes only. We do not claim any ownership over the sound effects, music, or audio clips used during the creation of this show. All licensed and copyright material belongs expressly to the license and copyright holders.
He's out cold. Huh?
Stay back, you cross-eyed lobster!
Chad, it's dangerous!
Yeah, but I've never felt more alive than now! My fear is gone, as Grandpa said, use your fear! I've gotta work on headbutts!
What do you want? sacred flame. Show me who's behind this evil monster.
Help me, granddaughter.
It's the Negaverse. They've managed to turn Grandpa into this beast. Grandpa, it's me, Ray. Don't you recognize me? Can you hear me? Grandpa, fight this evil.
Hold it! You're gonna be nothing but moon dust in about 2 seconds, Nega-crud! Moon Prism Power!
You don't know how glad I am to see you.
Glad to hear it. Why don't we seal our apology with a big bite of chocolate cupcake?
Sailor Moon, don't you think there are a few more important matters at hand here?
Yeah, I guess you're right. Moon Tiara.
Sailor Moon, you can't dust him. That monster's my grandpa.
Oh, he must have carried a rainbow crystal. Sailor Moon, if you brought your communicator, we could have called the other scouts for help.
We'll stun him so we can transform him back! Scroll. I call upon the power of Mars! Fireballs, charge! Moon healing! Activation! My poor grandpa.
Is he all right?
I think so.